I've thought a long time how to introduce this one, but I just can't find the right way.
Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors,
Hi,
baby,
and
it's
welcome
a
back,
battle.
dear listeners, to the Nomadic Business Insight. My name is Georg, and you're listening to the episode 19 of the season 1. In this episode, we're gonna speak with a person that has inspired me a lot emotionally and also made me think about what truly spirituality is at work. Vemund Skulberg is the pedagogic leader in the Waldorf Steiner Association in Norway. He is the same age as I am, born in 1995, and has already passed through so many interesting journeys in his life that I thought we just have to do an episode with him here on the NBI. Before we jump into this much calmer and inspiring episode, for those of you joining into video, you can see that I'm in my apartment back in Ålesund, and it's been a beautiful week relaxing at home here. After 3 weeks on the journey again, it's fair to say that I feel quite exhausted, and I'm just happy to be in my own bed, in my own walls. Even though it's raining, which it probably does about 70 or 80% in Ålesund, I feel happy and I'm excited for the weeks to come. And Sylvia and me are just about to leave to my childhood village to start building our container, which we in January gonna move up to Lofoten. If you listen to the Lofoten building update, where I shared a lot of the details of how we are planning to do that, you'll know that we also invested in a container, which we got shipped here out to the West Coast. And we're now, during the next weeks up to Christmas, gonna use every single weekend to build that container into one part of our future home. After we finish that step, we're gonna move it up to Lofoten with all our things inside and then plant it there, have it as our kind of finished living room before we start working on the actual house and property there. I have some super exciting news for you guys. First and foremost, Anne Sylvia has finally agreed to come back live on the Nomadic Business Insight podcast. She has decided to remain both in silence but also kind of offline for a lot of months during her pregnancy and early childhood of Sakira. And she is going to come live in the NBI podcast just before Christmas time to share about her recent year, what made her go so offline, and what she's up to in the future. I can just reveal as much as Anne Sylvia has quit her job as the head of design in our own company, LD Studio, which is a quite surprising move. She's doing that on purpose to pursue an alternative career. We don't know yet if she'll return in the future or not, but she'll always have a very warm place in all the hearts of the people connected to LD. So she's not gone forever, and she has already teased with that she potentially will start her own podcast in 2025. Time will show, we don't know, but I'm extremely excited for that talk coming up in December. More than that, we're closing into the end of season 1 of Nomadic Business Insight, and I'm so glad for having you all in, for everyone taking the time to listen to these episodes and taking part in my and our family's journey. So I just want to give you the warmest of thanks for sitting here, listening to me talking. It's been a pleasure making them, and judging by all the message we receive back from the podcast, we're giving a lot of value back, and that makes it all worth for me. But closing season 1 makes us wonder what's gonna happen after this. Well, I'm gonna give it to you right now. We have decided to launch season 2, and the release dates are just gonna come in the beginning of March. So we'll take a break in January and February, and in March we'll be back with an even stronger, more purpose-driven and entertaining season 2. And for season 2, I have the honor to bring in my first co-host ever. So the whole season 2 will be hosted together with another person. It's a step that I've decided to take to release the pressure a bit of me, but also because I love talking with someone week to week. That means for you, it's going to be more regular content, more stories to follow, and even more ideas to fry our prominent guests in this podcast. I couldn't be more excited, but I'm also quite thrilled for a 2 months break because it has been intense making this podcast. Finally, I just want to remember you that our merch is live on ld.studio. So if you are excited to check it out, go over there and get one for yourself. Maybe as an early Christmas gift. It could be an amazing little thing to give away. With that, remember that this podcast is made for entertainment purpose only, and the guests that we pick for this podcast have no commercial interest in joining into this show. We may or may not have collaborations ongoing with them, and with that, I think it's time to get this episode started, where me and Vemund from the Waldorf Steiner School dive into the topic of spirituality at work.
You are listening to LD Podcast. Would you like to publish with us? Tell us your story at www.ld.studio/podcasts. Edited and published by LD Studio.
Hi, Vemund, and welcome to the Nomadic Business Insight.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure having you here. We've had, I'd say, quite a normal way to getting to know each other. It's been an intense journey,
Yeah.
but it's been very, very fun.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to know Vemund pretty much as part of work, as part of a commissioned project in the would you say it's called Steiner School Association, if you translate it, or
Well,
Waldorf?
In most English-speaking countries, you know the Steiner schools as Waldorf schools. I normally say Steiner Waldorf schools. So-
Both combined.
Yeah, so then because in some, like for example in England, you would say Steiner schools,
Okay.
but in America you would say Waldorf schools.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it's quite confusing, but I would say Steiner Waldorf schools.
I tried to Google, and then I see, for example, in Spain, I see a lot of Escuela de Waldorf, but then in England, I saw a lot of Steiner schools. What's the history behind that? Why?
Well, it's quite interesting. Rudolf Steiner, he was asked to establish a school in a factory in 1919, and it was a Waldorf Astoria cigarette factory. And so
A cigarette.
it was a cigarette factory, and the factory owner asked Rudolf Steiner to make a school for the kids of his workers, and I think Steiner himself wouldn't really want a school named after himself. There's some quotes saying that he would like it to be the Goethe school, from Johann Wolfgang Goethe. So
That's very fascinating.
yeah,
I actually never knew that part of the story.
yeah. But in Norway we know it as Steiner schools. But yeah.
We'll speak a bit more about Steiner pedagogic. We'll also speak, as you probably noticed in the title of the episode, about spirituality in work. But before that, I really want to get to know you a bit better, and I want to help our listeners to get to know you. And as I usually do, is just establishing a little map of the people we speak to. And so I have some really, really challenging questions for you to dive. You're getting a bit fried today.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
But before we jump into the first question, we're sitting currently, for those of you watching in video, you'll see, you gotta help me out here, Vemund. Is it hieroglyphs?
Yeah, this is papyrus drawings of Egyptian art. I don't think there's actually hieroglyphs. Maybe on this tablet here. Some of the tablets do have
But
some
traditional Egyptian drawings in one of the classrooms of the Steiner University in Norway, the Steiner University, and you are also working here as, help me define your title in English.
It's a counselor position or an advisory position
For all of the schools in terms of their curriculum, right?
yeah, the pedagogical advisory. Yeah.
Pedagogisk rådgiver.
Yes, the Norwegian pedagogisk rådgiver. Yeah, or secretary. We sometimes also call it the pedagogical secretary.
So what is your because you started off as a teacher in the Steiner school system in Norway. We'll get back to that journey, but at some point you choose to jump into the secretary or the association itself, and why did that motivate you?
Well, it was an interesting point in my life. It was like an opening. I just followed a class from class 8 to class 10, and there was some new changes at the school I was working, and this position came up in the association, and somebody asked me to apply for it. They said, "Vemund, I think you would do a good job here. Could you apply?" And I was very flattered by that, and thought maybe I'll apply and see what happens. And it just seemed to fit, and to yeah.
I love those kind of stories when you're inside the workplace and new opportunities open inside that workplace.
Yes, and actually I still have a job as a teacher. So
Really?
yes, so I'm still employed by the school that I used to work at. But I have a leave for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Because all the schools are members of the association. So although we're here at the university college, we're not part of the university college. We have our own association that all the schools in Norway, all the 34 Steiner Waldorf schools in Norway, they're part of this association. And part of that agreement is that if any of the employees in the schools are elected into working in the association, the schools have to give them this permission to leave.
What a benefit being employed in two places, pretty much.
Yes.
On paper.
Yeah, so it's on paper. I don't receive any salary from my school, but there is a certain I would say a certain stability in it, and also it affirms this idea that I'm not supposed to stay in this position forever, and we're supposed to change so that I can fulfill a function here for some time.
That's a cool feeling.
And then at some point we would have to look at, is this the right time for me to stay here, or should I go back in the school, work in the school, or should someone else step into this position? I think it's a good idea, and we see in political institutions it's the same, that there is this need of changing a bit. And I think for working with all the schools, it's good to keep some movement.
I guess they also see the big benefit of it when you as a teacher go out, explore the system, let's say in that way, even more, and you see the good sides and you see the bad sides, and you get to do an impact, and then you get to go back and be a teacher potentially
Yeah.
and implement that even further.
And I think also because working in the association, we work with like management and all the frames around school, and I think it's so easy working in an office, working with the frames around the school, the organization. I think it's so easy if we stay too long in these situations, we sort of forget what's the situation on the floor, like what's the situation in the school. And to keep that connection I think is so important. So I think it's also a very good good idea to keep that connection.
You seem excited about the position, and that makes me happy. That, but I guess you're meeting a lot of challenge too. Anyway, we'll go a bit into the Steiner school system, not particularly in Norway. I think that's too short of a time we have here available today, but maybe more on a global level. I think that's very interesting. But before that, I want to ask you my questions. And my first question is, where were you when you were 15 years old? With it, like the month you turned 15 years old, do you remember what you did?
Oh wow.
That's about half your life back.
Yeah. It's just about half. So when I was 15, I guess it must have been like the first year of high school, and so I just started. Actually, interestingly enough, I just started to get to know quite a lot of people going to the Waldorf Steiner schools and hanging out with them. And I started in Norway. We have this music.
Music high school, yeah.
It's like a music high school.
Musiklinja.
School musical.
Oh, we have that too.
Yeah. Walking. So yeah, no, it was a music music-oriented high school, and you would still get the competency to study in the university. So I just started there, and I was playing bass. I was playing electric bass, and was exploring a lot of music at the time. Working with that.
That's cool. At that time, I think I was actually, I applied first for the theater high school, you know, the similar program, but with theater.
Yeah.
But then I changed, like, I think 2 weeks before school started. I kind of got a bit, nah, I do think I'm gonna go to top sports anyway, because I already gotten admitted at top sports, which kind of a sport program for soccer. And then I applied for theater because I kind of aligned more with those people I imagined. But then I changed my mind. But then 6 months into school start, I figured out it's a bit too squared, the people here. It's not that fun to go to class. And I ended up changing over to international. So it's a crazy mess. But
yeah. Well, I mean, the music high school was amazing. When I was going to middle school, I was so fed up with school. I just felt it was completely meaningless and just so squared, as you say, like very little life in it, and very strange actually. But when I came to the music school, I really just was looking forward to every day coming to school, because we had these creative
that's a good feeling.
endeavors, and it was just really inspiring to be in that school. It was some amazing years. And looking back, I really feel so grateful for those 3 years.
Well, thanks for sharing. It's cool to look back a bit in life. I have another similar question, but that is a bit more about feeling, because that's where we're heading, kind of. I like to talk a lot about how we are feeling about what we're doing currently. And to kind of enter that realm, I want to ask you, how were you feeling coming into your 20s? It was kind of like just finishing high school. I don't know, did you go out travel, or
Yeah.
do you remember how you were feeling about yourself?
Wow, that's an interesting
It's a
question.
tough
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
really
it's quite
tough
It's quite
question.
a tough question. Yeah. Well, entering my 20s, I did go on a journey, and I went to Germany and did a 3-month silent meditation retreat.
Yeah, I want to get back to that one.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
how were you feeling before going into that period?
It was this amazing time of actually anything was possible. Yeah.
So you had a quite optimistic entry into your 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
Because I tend to meet a lot of people as well that come out from school and high school with a lot of I'm a bit unsure how to put it in the most respectful way, but a lot of like anxiety. You know, there has been a period with a lot of the safety grid around you kind of gets removed from living at home and being with your childhood friends, and then people get into high school and there's a lot of inputs, but also a lot of people come out from that vacuum a bit with an anxiety. But I was the same. When I went out from high school, I was finally free.
Yeah, I don't know. It's quite funny. Now it feels such a long time ago, but I think also it's good. I do enjoy a little bit of creative chaos, so maybe it's part of my personality to kind of enjoy that journey into the unknown.
Yeah. But so you headed out, you went to Germany.
I went to Germany. I did this retreat for 3 months, and then right after that, I moved to, well, about a few months after I came back, I moved to Scotland, and I volunteered as a personal assistant for an older Buddhist monk, and lived there for 1 year.
That is quite a journey, but I had the pleasure to talk with you a bit about your silent retreat, and I got very inspired personally. I've done a little bit of more research since then. Are you happy about sharing a little bit about the
Yeah,
adventure there?
yeah, I'd love to.
Because one of the things that struck me the most was when you told me how released you were after the 3 months there. Maybe we can start there with that feeling, explaining. I think you explained it in the most beautiful way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Like, I felt after the 3 months, i- it was just this incredible feeling, like it was bubbling over with joy. And the 3 months was by no means just joy. It was tough. Like, sometimes it was really tough. But we just kept at it, and we kept meditating every day for many hours, and there was this like gentle, just like focusing again and again on creating a positive mind and making that mind a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more relaxed, letting go. And so at the end of it, it was just like it was bubbling over all these small efforts. It was, and I just, it was so amazing to then get to talk to these people. I just felt so close to them. It was really strange because we had no eye contact. We were not talking to each other. It was just so amazed, such loving, warm atmosphere. And then to go out and meet people again. I met my dad. He came to see me right afterwards.
No way, he came out
Yeah,
to
he
visit.
came out.
Oh,
He
that's
came out to
amazing.
Germany, and it was just, we had a great time walking in the parks, and it was just a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can imagine. Do you still remember your first words or the first thing you said? Because I can barely imagine how was it where people was it kind of 12 o'clock you were allowed to speak, or did you just wake up?
Yeah, there
And
was
then
it-
was the retreat over and then
no, there was some like 12 o'clock lunchtime we're speaking in, and it's wildly like
were you
it's no, well, I was a little bit anxious, actually, yeah, and it was something very not like, it was very ordinary. I think it was just hey, or something like this. It wasn't special at all.
It's almost a bit weird.
Yeah, it was
probably. It's a bit weird that you're kind of been around with each other 90 days. I don't know how many minutes that are. I can just imagine the countdown and the very end, like almost a bit like New Year. Then, what am I saying now? Hello?
Yeah, no, it was really gentle. The no.
Did someone do like funny sounds?
Well, I can't remember quite like how it broke the silence. It was just, I think, quite gentle, but I do remember it was a lot of laughing throughout that day, and we stayed up quite late. Just like had so much to talk about, and yeah, it was really nice.
Did you at any point the hours after or the days after feel like I'm actually gonna take some time now and be silent again, like for an hour, 2 hours? Was that something that's conscious stayed with you a bit? Because I think if you're doing it that actively for that period of time, it almost becomes a habit.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, and it's quite interesting because what the silence. So silence is not so, it's not so important. It's not a goal in itself to be silent, but what it allows us to do is it allows us to become more aware of what's actually going on already. So I became very aware of like the commentator within me, just like commentating everything that I was doing, and creating all these stories, extra stories. And I think right afterwards I really noticed how unsatisfying some of my attempts to relax was. For example, watching TV or scrolling on the phone. How tiring that is, and how it's not satisfying this need to rest. And the silence, for example, taking some time in silence, taking some time in meditation and reflection, not doing so much is just so important and amazing for relaxing and for actually giving yourself more energy. But what we normally do is like we fill up on more and more information. And it was just so interesting. Like, I would come in the beginning, I would come to this board where they had these notices like, can somebody clean this? All these like silly, boring updates. And I was just like looking, what's new? Just searching, like, give me some stimuli. And when you don't get that, when you're sort of left without that new stimuli, you really get a chance to actually refresh from the inside and really relax.
I really want to get back to that. But before we open more about that silence, because one thing I wanted to ask you about, but I'll save you a bit later in the podcast, is how you think silence can help us in our daily work. That's a big topic, so I want to open it a bit later, because I think we can share a lot of practical tips there. But there was one thing that I was thinking about actually earlier today, which I wanted to ask you about, and that is, do you often think about doing acts throughout the day slower than you would use to do them? I tend to do this a lot when every time I grasp myself rushing. And rushing can be so many things, you know. Rushing can be on a general level where just everything is a rush and you don't even notice anymore, or that I call it like like a bit like stressed fuzzy rushing, you know, when you're like grabbing the glass a bit too fast, closing the door a little bit too fast, and it just adds up. And then when I tend to do it, I go like, okay, how much time do you actually save by doing it like, I don't know, 1.2% faster, but but a lot percent more inaccurate. And then I try to make it almost a game for myself. How can you do it a couple of percentage slower, but enjoy it twice as much?
Yeah.
You know, do you get the idea?
I do. I totally get it. Yeah.
I think it's a very fun mind game.
I think it's part of play, because it's actually transitioning from I do work a lot with play and movement, especially I was a sports teacher in the school, and I think that there is this playful or maybe artistic way of looking at life that you're explaining, because like, what are we really rushing towards? Rushing is this efficient mindset. We're like very much like intellectually
It's
having
very task oriented. We all
Yeah.
have our tasks,
Yeah.
and we have to complete this full list to accomplish the goal. And then you never sit back and stop. Who actually wrote that task list, and who confirmed with me that that task list will ultimately bring me to my goal? Because alternatively, there could be an infinity number of task lists that brings you to the same place.
Yeah. And also there's like the moment we finish our task list, like, when is that? Like, there's always going to be another task list. There's this Buddhist saying that like the things to do in life is like an old man's beard. You cut it in the morning and it grows back in the evening. And I think it's just such a great saying, because it's so true. Like, there's never a moment where we're finished with everything. And so what you're explaining, this like slowing down and allowing this sort of play with life and dance with life, I think it's super interesting.
I love that you define it as dancing, and I think it's so refreshing having that mindset that just because you're not visually dancing that what someone else would define as a dance, you can dance in your movement. In terms of, let's say your current task is to clean the dishes and dry them, then instead of being somewhere else in your mind and drying dishes and trying to do it as quick as possible, then see how you focus, how can you flip that each plate in a beautiful way,
Yeah.
stroke it off in the most beautiful way, not judging yourself, it's not a competition, but just having fun with that thing. And I think that way a lot of things can become relaxing and
Yeah,
resting.
definitely. Yeah, and also like a creative endeavor and inspiring.
Mostly I feel rest is not necessarily connected to physical rest. It's as well, and throughout the day, maybe even more important, connected to mental rest.
Yeah.
How often do you allow yourself to rest mentally? And it can be, I think, these kind of mini meditations where meditating by an act can help people that are not as good as meditating yet to actually.
And it's a little bit funny that you say, because just as I said, I noticed with watching TV, like I would try to rest and I would physically look like I'm resting. I'm sitting there, But watching the TV, I noticed it was actually very unsatisfying.
It gives you information, it puts pressure on you, it puts demands on you.
Yeah, and not to say that you can never watch TV. It's I think it's nice to watch.
It's also an activity.
Yeah, and it's also, but it's an activity. It's
Yeah, that's the
it's
that's
not
like-
it's not rest. You're actually receiving a lot of information. And
so that's an important thing to define whether what do you want to do? Do you want to rest physical, mentally, both of them simultaneously? Definitely a big topic. About sayings, whilst you were putting up that saying, I just remembered a saying which the person which I met before we met told me, and it also stuck to me. And he said, but it was about trust, so it's a bit off topic, but he said trust is gained in drops but spilled in buckets.
Yeah.
That it takes a very long time to build trust with people, and you can spill it very fast. That is also a very interesting saying.
Yeah.
Do you like sayings?
I love sayings. Yeah. And sometimes they're a bit cheesy, but I think, why is it cheesy? Because we know it resonates, or it feels,
We relate to them.
we relate to it. Yeah.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
No,
And I think it's also helpful.
thank you so much for diving into that with slowing down in our paces, and I think with that it brings us back to bringing it into our daily lives, and maybe also taking silencing into our daily lives. And as I revealed very early, that I want to bring this conversation gradually into spirituality at work, in terms of, and this is a very massive topic, and I don't even think we can like start to open a full library, but the way I was intentionally looking at the topic was when we go to work, and work defined as where we earn our money, or when we go to our workplace, or when we do our creative activity, are we still allowing ourselves to play, dance, laugh? I think that is a big part of our spirituality. It's not necessarily all of it, because a lot of it is connected to beliefs and how we treat other people. Would you agree or disagree? Is how you enjoy life part of being spiritual?
Oh yeah, I think like the challenge, or the encouragement with spirituality is to not keep it like a separate thing. I think also this idea that we have to separate like work-life balance also.
Yeah.
It's
No, I don't like that term.
you have one life, and it's not like you have a work life that can be meaningless, and and a life that you can.
That means a lot.
That means a lot, and that's where you have to have all your spiritual practice. I think feeling this like dance with what you're doing, with how you're treating, as you said, how you're treating other people, how you're taking time to reflect, to be a little bit silent, and having these moments of just stopping and like, okay, well, who am I in this situation? And like, am I rushing, or am I believing into these models of who I think I am, that are just not helping us, and that are just creating so much problems?
I'm just getting this picture in my head where I'm a very visual thinker. How are you? Are you visually thinking, or are you you're talking a lot about a voice, a commentary in your head?
Yeah, I do.
I can't relate so much to that, because I am a very visual thinker. Everything I think and formulate, and when I listen to you, it comes up in pictures and stories. Like you talk about a concept, and I see you in that concept.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think I do like a lot of the auditory. Like I do think also tactile. I'm quite a tactile thinker. So I have this like feelings related to the thoughts, and like also I think when I talk about like dancing with life, I feel like there is this, for me it resonates, like there is this element of movement, or playing, dancing, wrestling with ideas, and it really feels like that. Like it is a physical
I
element.
like
Yeah.
that explanation. But I got that picture in my head where I was seeing, when you were talking, about how to kind of take a part of that spiritual journey of silencing yourself at work as well. And then I got the picture of you in motion and you in stillness. So I think you could almost define spirituality by those two categories. Spirituality in motion for me would mean whenever I interact with someone, whenever I meet someone, whenever I guide or when I receive guidance or in conversation, that is for me spirituality in motion. If you allow yourself to see it that way. And then on the other side, we have spirituality in stillness, which both of them can happen in your private life and at work. And that is when you, as you mentioned, allow yourself to freeze, wait, observe, breathe. And I just kind of reflect back on my time that throughout my 20s, I started doing it more and more. And now I would say the last 3-4 years, I'm doing it extremely active. That it's not something where I'll have a reminder or like a calendar entry. It just comes to me. Suddenly throughout the day, I'm like, I have this strong urge to feel some sense of spiritual connection now. And it doesn't matter where I am or what conversation I am in or what meeting I am in. And suddenly maybe I pop completely off. And if I'm seeking spirituality in motion, then some of the most beautiful moments I've had the last years is when you kind of grip someone out of the situation. It could be a business meeting, and then you're just like, how are you feeling about this topic? And you're just allowing both sides to drift off completely, releasing yourself from purpose. And that just gives you both energy, but also it relaxes you.
Yeah, totally. And I think as you're like the topic you're on to now is quite interesting, because there is this, it almost looks like opposing activities of stillness and being active in motion. And I think as you were talking about, there is this need to oscillate between them, of not just staying in one. And I think
but also looking at it as a triangle where the center forward is purpose, what you're here for doing. I don't know what it is, but it has a purpose. And then the spirituality and stillness and motion behind are kind of places where you can go anyway. Some might call it small talk or get to know people, but I think if you allow yourself of, I'm actually gonna take charge of this situation now, and I'm gonna practice my own spirituality in seeing, can I make this person drift alongside me to another place? And then we can bring the conversation back to what we are here for, a purpose.
And I think also just it's a spiritual practice to be genuinely interested in another person and open your heart to just getting to know them.
Yeah, that's such an amazing part of it. That is, it's really good that you mention it, because ultimately that is what it's gonna lead you to.
I think in general in society we can also feel this sort of, it's almost like a wisdom, or we know deep down that if we just get stuck in doing mode of just doing and doing and doing, then there is some kind of hollowness, or like we're missing something.
Yeah.
We get lost.
This is a very essential part of the Steiner pedagogy. Where does it differentiate the learning model from more traditional models?
It's a very good question. And I think there is something about this oscillation, this rhythmic teaching, or a model of changing between activity and stillness, and that is part of the pedagogical methods in Steiner Waldorf education that has this element. So we have this idea in Waldorf pedagogy that we want to teach not just the head, but the head, the heart, and the hands. We want to
The head and the heart and the hands.
Yeah. So the thought, the feeling, and the willingness, the activity.
Because thoughts and feelings tend to not be a very big part of education, primary and secondary, in most parts of the world.
Yes, but
unfortunately.
but it's quite interesting, this point, because I think if we look at our own biography, at our own life, and we look at like, what do I really know? It's like I really know, and like my expertise, most likely it's related to a lot of feeling. Like maybe we have this feeling when we were going out with our grandfather, looking at mushrooms in the forest, or looking at sea life, and we became a marine biologist, or like some of these, like there
That
is
your intent is driven by your feeling.
there is this knowledge that is imbued with feeling, like it's charged with feeling, and this is a central part of the Waldorf pedagogy, especially for in the primary school, that we need to get to the thoughts, get to the thinking, the theory, and the understanding through engaging yourself in stories, in having a relationship to what you're teaching, or to what you're learning, if
Yeah,
you're
I
receiving.
follow you.
And so that's like this feeling aspect, and the willing aspect is like this. We need to engage, and Steiner said that a philosopher that doesn't know how to fix his own shirt is not a complete human. And I really enjoy this
It's
idea.
a very simple analogy, but
Yeah.
it has a lot of truth in it.
Yeah, like we also need to act, and to this the beauty in just doing something. The craft of it.
Practically speaking, how would you say, I mean, you obviously can explain most about Norway, but I'd like to pull it a bit outside from Norway. How are the Steiner Waldorf Steiner Waldorf?
Yeah.
Steiner Waldorf schools differentiating themselves from other public and private school systems? If you'd take it away from the philosophy and gives, because a lot of the listeners here, I assume, do not know anything about Waldorf and Steiner schools. So I think doing it as easy and practical as possible would help a lot of people.
Yeah, so the Steiner Waldorf schools are actually they are in many different countries throughout the world, and there's been a big interest in China, for example, recent years.
Really? In China?
Yeah, and also I've heard from friends of mine that have researched the Waldorf schools in China, that it really resonates with the Chinese culture and the heritage. So there is this idea that we have to educate not just like a materialistic view of the human being, but really allow for more space. Like it has to be space for the child to grow into, not just like knowing lots of things. So we have a lot of emphasis on creative exploration of art, of playing, of dancing.
My understanding is also that a lot of the schools, they see, I mean, it's a saying, the human as a whole is a very typical saying in the Steiner Waldorf schools. But I think to put it on a practical level is that there is a clear trend of the school is a place where we're guiding the children to become the most humble, loving, and nicest version of themselves, guiding throughout curiosity for learning, not necessarily a strict curriculum. I mean, obviously there is a curriculum.
There's
It's
definitely
very
a
important to
curriculum.
say there is a curriculum,
Yeah.
but it's not the main driving force.
And it's interesting that you said that, because in another way you could also say that there is a driving force. There is this interest for the world, and there's this interest for the, what we would say, like we have many themes that in all Waldorf schools you would hear these themes, these like history lessons, the revolutions of the 18th or the 19th century. You would get some of these revolutions and some of these stories, some of these main lesson themes that would definitely be part of it. And I would say, like, we try to be so holistic as possible. And that's why we don't sacrifice any learning. Like, we don't sacrifice the theory at all, but it comes from a place of curiosity and a place of artistic exploration. And then it is necessary that we make some exemplary, like, we can't teach everything. There's too much to know in the world that we can never
I have
learn
two
enough. So we have to be like get the essence.
I have two really tough questions for you.
Yeah, please.
And we can't drift too far
No,
into them
no.
because we're closing this off, unfortunately. But in the last 10 minutes, there's two tough questions and then there's a closer that I really want to touch on with you. And the one question is how the Steiner and Waldorf kids learn, or throughout the, let's say, the school system. How do you see that lacking in our work lives in a general? I mean, this is very judgmental because there's so many different workplaces. We know that this is not covering everyone because there are amazing workplaces, but in general, what do you say is lacking from that journey when people go out in their work lives?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think
It's a bit negative phrased, but I think it's intentionally negative phrased because why are we so many people that are running around their whole day with so little joy?
yeah, and it also relates to this experience that you have of hearing a lot of people coming out of school with a lot of anxiety, and I think there is this real danger of becoming one-sided. There is this it's a real danger that we just
Forget to enjoy? Is
I
that's
think
kind of what you're
I think
or we're having the wrong image of what, like we're feeling kind of like buying things or going places or watching movies or stuff. This is, joy, and then
I think also like becoming one-sided in a way that is over intellectualizing, for example, or as we were in the beginning, we're talking a little bit about being effective. Rushing to do, like, what are we rushing for? Like, what is there to make? Like, what are we rushing to meet a certain arbitrary deadline? I mean, I think that's the key. Like, because our intellect sort of fools us to think it's so important to be efficient, and all of this and this and this and this will make me really happy, and it doesn't. We're fooling ourselves in this way, and there is this like emphasizing efficiency with just like understanding everything in an abstract way. We can come a bit rigid, or like Steiner described it as like there's a danger of when we grow old to become like dried up inside.
funny enough, many people rediscover their inner child once they grow at a certain age.
Yeah,
I tend to see that a lot when people pass their 50s, 60s. A lot of elderly people tend to reignite their inner child, and maybe it comes a bit from being sad about that they lost it for a while, maybe. Because I see that process in many people that I've met, that are suddenly there's so much joy and fun
and
again.
and that's also like a privilege of being a teacher. You get to hang out with kids all the time, and they force you to be in this more of a playful energy. Like, you have to really like, okay, you have to make up these stories, or you have to make these games for the kids, and you sing songs with them, you play the games, and so I think it's easier to maintain a sort of childishness in a positive way
For some,
for some.
I think it's important to say
Yeah,
for
for some,
because
yeah.
I've also met a lot of teachers throughout my life, where I see someone that is just carrying out the job to get it carried out.
And I think that's that's a real danger. And coming back to your question, like, what is it that can go wrong in our workplace, and that we do offer in this, that I see that we offer in the Steiner Waldorf education, is this: can we include more of ourselves? Can we be creative? Can we have some artistic development?
Thanks for bringing it that way.
Some dance? Can we have some singing? Can we allow for some expression of ourselves? And it can be as easy as like dancing with doing the dishes at work.
I actually have a very fun and easy tip that I would like to share with the listeners, and that because I've spent some time thinking throughout, because I think both of us are very open beings. We're quite extrovert in many ways, and we're not afraid of making a fool out of ourselves or being a bit of a clown in a situation, and that leads to us maybe feeling that we can be a bit more free in certain situations, whilst other people feel a lot of social pressure and they would never ever in a work relation really do what they maybe want to do in terms of being free. But I do think taking charge and putting on music sometimes is an amazing trick. And I would really recommend everyone that is listening in that when you get back to work, if it's tomorrow or next week, decide a place where you're just gonna cut off a meeting or a situation and say, hey, everyone, just want you to listen like 3 minutes. This song is amazing.
Yeah.
I think
Or
That's-
singing, even better, I think.
but it's a high,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
it's really a high,
it's a bigger buy-in, yeah.
it's a high bar to pass.
Yeah, that's true.
There's so much you can do. You can make a joke or something. There's so much fun you can do. You can dance, you can play, but I think music is a tool that we tend to forget about in our modern life. Everyone has music on their ears, in their AirPods alone. It's like a solo journey almost at this point. And because there was a person that gave me this tip some years ago, and I've really used it a lot, and I use it probably almost every day, where in some situation I'm like, I feel this situation is a bit boring, it's stressful, I see everyone in this room could need an uplifter, and I'm just, guys, let 2 minutes, this song is amazing, do you have a story to share?
Yeah, definitely. You could see it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but I would actually ask people that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
put the song on,
Yeah.
then they forget about what they were doing, and I'll ask like, you have a story to share?
Yeah. And it's incredible what music does to us. And I think we understood this in traditional societies. You would have folk dances to come together. And I have this colleague that he used to say that if you have a problem with bullying, you should do more folk dances. Yeah. And it's like, what?
Do you have a problem with bullies?
Yeah, if you have a problem with bullies in your class, you should do more folk dances. And it's always like,
as a
what?
teacher.
As a teacher. Yeah, with the
Ah.
kids. And it's this interesting socializing activity of singing and dancing. It's because you're like, we're holding hands, we're practicing being close, not being too close.
I'll give you a modern twist on it. If you're a department leader and you're struggling with progress, do
Yeah.
more folk dances.
Do some folk dances. Yeah. Yeah, put on a nice song.
Any recommendations? Polka?
Troika is the
Troika.
best. Troika is the best. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If the energy is low, do some troika.
All right.
That's perfect.
I guess we can look it up on YouTube and
Yeah,
get some
you find it on
inspiration.
YouTube. It's great. It's fun.
Amazing. No, that's really cool. Well, we're getting to the end of this. But before we close, I really wanted to ask you about our current production that we led at LD Studio for the association. It's not something that I want to spend a lot of time on, but how did you feel that week was? I mean, we spent some intense days together. You were
It was super intense. Yeah.
to give everyone the context, Vemund had the honor to be the host of the Steiner Waldorf Association's podcast here in Norway. The association had decided to launch a podcast, and you were hosting it, and we had the quite unnormal idea of scheduling 16 episodes in 1 week, back to back, 4 days.
I love it. I'm really thankful for that you guys went along with that idea, and because as you say, it was super intense.
It was.
Yeah, but it was amazing to work with you guys. I felt, we'd been talking about making a podcast for a long time, and it always fell back on, well, I don't really know how to do it.
Yeah.
Don't have the technical skills, and so when I met you guys, it was just a perfect fit. And
It was cool. It was.
I felt so safe working with you guys, and so I got so much help. It was amazing to see you guys at work.
Thank you.
And so it was just such a joy, and also so cool that you guys were up for also a challenge.
Oh man, we had an amazing time. It was really cool, and I remember the Monday after when we're back at work, I spoke with Jens Olav, which was the technical advisor during the whole production, and he just reached out to me personally, and thank you, Georg, for setting me up for that challenge. I think I've never had a more meaningful, spiritual work week with so much input, because he had the honor to listen into all of the episodes live, and yeah, we actually had a very nice conversation about that, and I think that is some of the most memorable part of it, that a podcast is something that remains for a long time, and it's such a raw medium. It's so unedited, and it's truly the artwork of the people involved, the guests, and you guys did an amazing job. So
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to put it out. I truly am.
Yeah, me too.
And get a bit of feedback from the world around us in Norway.
Hmm.
Well, I think we are on the very end here. It's been a memorable evening, and I'm very happy and thankful that I got to share a bit from your life and your journey, because truly you are an amazing person. You are,
Yeah.
and I think there are potentially a lot of kids waiting for Vemund to return as a teacher. Do you get message sometimes, or like kind of, can you come back?
Yes, sometimes I'm lucky to go around in the schools also to visit, and I do sometimes meet some old students at the schools, and it's always so nice. Yeah, and
Another question I had, if someone around listening into here, maybe somewhere in Europe or outside of Europe, is interested in becoming a Steiner Waldorf teacher, is there any way, because you've told me a little bit about the research facility of the Steiner Global Association in Switzerland, or is it
yeah,
that what is
yeah. So
what's the name of
it's an English teacher training in what's known as the Goetheanum in Switzerland.
Goetheanum?
Goetheanum, yeah.
Whereabout in Switzerland?
It's right next to Basel.
Basel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a beautiful, really strange building. It was designed by Rudolf Steiner, and they're researching Waldorf pedagogy there. They're doing a lot of conferences, seminars. They have a teacher training there, that is international.
Sorry to interrupt you, but can you apply from
You can
anywhere in the world?
yeah,
And
but you have to live there. Like
how
it's
is the
in-
financing working? Is it expensive?
I do think because it's in Switzerland, I think that training is quite expensive. But there are different trainings around the world and in different parts. Like in Norway here, we have a teacher training in the Rudolf Steiner University College, as it's known in English, Steiner Høgskolen in Norwegian.
And here it is partly public funded, or
Yeah, it's
entirely?
mostly public funded. It's a small fee, almost nothing, and you get money from the student loan.
Is it possible for international students to apply here in Norway?
We do have an international master's, so if you have a bachelor's degree,
In any teaching, or only
It's-
Steiner Waldorf?
so you can have any bachelor's degree. You can have an arts degree.
Oh, really? So,
yeah.
So really, anyone around the world that has a bachelor degree can apply
and
for
to
your masters.
and to take a master in pedagogical research. So it's more based on the research part, and it's a great program.
Are there people who have jumped from that into teaching, kind of afterwards, or? Because I'm just trying to help
lot of-
people out a bit here.
A lot of the students in the master's program have already taught already, but some don't. And so it's different requirements from different schools and systems around the world. So in Norway, it's very strict on like the teacher trainings. It has to be very specific. But for example, if you want to work, if you are already a teacher and you want to work in the Waldorf school, you can do research here at the masters.
We're truly fortunate, though, in Norway, having such an established Steiner system.
Yeah, and we have had schools here for 100 years. So since 1926.
How come that Norway went so on the Rudolf Steiner wave?
So Rudolf Steiner came to Norway.
Really?
And held different lectures and did different seminars here in Norway. So there was a group of Norwegians that were quite, and Scandinavians also, that were quite interested in his work, and have been quite active in the global Steiner Waldorf movement. actually during it's quite funny because we do say it's 100 years, but during the occupation, the German occupation, under Nazi Germany, there was 5 years of undercover Waldorf schools. So just down the block in close to Bislett, there was this villa, and they would like meet up in the basement, and they would tell like these fairy tales and would do the drawing work like in the
It will be for another episode, or maybe one episode in Steiner Podden. I think so. The episode about Steiner Podden, meet the legends from.
Yeah, I mean, there's not
is
alive
the-
here.
nobody
Still,
alive?
I don't think there's anybody alive from that period.
Maybe a
but
child.
I know, yeah, and I know some in the family of the teachers that ran that school.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
No,
yeah.
you should truly do an episode
Yeah.
about that. And for those of you curious, Steiner Podden, which unfortunately isn't Norwegian, but there are a lot of Norwegian listeners here too. That one will be published on all major podcast platforms very soon. So definitely go in there and listen more to Vemund and his guests. I can confirm that there is a lot you want to listen into there. So go and check that out. And I think with that we have to close it. It's the time we have. We could probably sit for 2
Yeah.
or 3 hours more.
Oh, definitely. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, truly. Thank you everyone for listening in. Thank you, Vemund, for joining me here tonight. And with that, we'll see you around. My name is Georg, and thank you for listening in to the Nomadic Business Insight podcast.
Thank you for listening to LD Podcast. We are continuously looking for the most talented innovators. No matter your background or expertise, shoot us an email at high5@ld.studio with your skills and portfolio.